Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome JINSA Chairman David Steinmann.
Whenever anything gets to seem a little too serious, they call me out for a little comic relief. I've got a really terrific job to do tonight. I've got a small number of minutes. So I won't take too much of it talking about myself. I'm going to talk about 14 of our senior mentors, members of our board of advisors, who we've never actually said thank you to publicly. We tell them thank you all the time privately, but we decided that tonight would be a good time, and tomorrow morning also, to say it in public. We have a great advisory board. It grows every day with fantastic men and women who've worn our uniforms, and they make us a unique organization. There isn't anybody else like JINSA. There's no other organization that has our credibility, and we owe that to our men and women who've worn our uniforms and who lend us their experience, their advice, their counsel, their guidance. Mike talked about our admirals and generals trip before. I won't repeat what he said. It's one of the primary ways that we get to meet these people and form our friendships and our relationships with them. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to introduce them to you. What I asked each of them was to please give me a few words that they'd like to hear me say when I point to their pictures on the screens. So, and you'll forgive me if I use their first names. I consider them all to be very close friends. So can we have a picture of Jerry Johnson, please? Jerry Johnson, some of you may know him, he was the Navy's Gray Eagle when he retired. These are the words that Jerry asked me to say. One of the highlights of my career on participation in national security and strategic studies was the profound experience of participating in activities, meetings, and travels with JINSA. The professionalism, patriotism, and reputation of JINSA afforded us the most compelling opportunity to meet some of the most important leaders in the Middle East, in Israel, Turkey, Jordan, as well as the senior armed forces commanders in that part of the world. We were invited to meet and share very high-level discussions with, now he met 3 prime ministers with us, Rabin, Barak, and Netanyahu. He met presidents of Israel, chiefs of defense. He said this was a most profound experience and something for which I'm deeply grateful. That was Jerry. General Lou Wagner. He graduated from West Point in 1954. Some of the guys asked me to speak about what they'd done. Earned a degree in theoretical and applied mechanics at the University of Illinois. My table is a graduate of that engineering school. He taught mechanics then at West Point. He became the chief armor and commanding general of the Armor Center at Fort Knox, commander of the U.S. Army Material Command, and he had command assignments at every level, from platoon to armor brigade, United States and Germany, as well as overseas assignments in Alaska. He did 2 combat tours in Vietnam as an infantry and armor advisor. But probably the most important contribution that Lou has made to us was he was a member of the search team that helped identify Mike Makovsky and help us convince Mike to become the CEO of JINSA. That was Lou Wagner. Bud Edney, please. Bud is a very old and longtime friend, personal and of JINSA's. He's really been one of our very senior mentors. Bud sent a very short note. He said, "I regret not being able to attend from the left coast. I'm quoting him, JINSA has no political stands. We are nonpartisan. Our close alliance with Israel is essential to peace in the Middle East and globally. The influence and actions of JINSA are essential to achieving that mission. God bless and shalom." Those are Earl Hailston. Earl said to please tell you all that he professes to be the strongest believer and supporter of JINSA and their mission. He preaches that it is the most important program offered to give our leadership a true and balanced perspective on Israel and on the entire Middle East. That's General Halston. Fred McCorkle. I asked Fred to give me a few words that he'd like to hear me say, and Fred wrote back and said, David, I've never, and then he put in parentheses, that's a big word, done that. But if pressed, I would just say that I am a Marine with over 1,500 combat missions, who has flown 65 different series of aircraft, who considers ethics and loyalty to be the two most important qualities not only to the Marine Corps, but also to organizations like JINSA. He signed it Semper Fidelis. Fred. Fred and Kathy are right here. And General, Kathy, would you guys stand up for me, please? Ted Stroop. Oh, you're ahead of me. Ted asked me to say that, and this is a quote, my JINSA relationship for me has been rewarding, informative, and professionally beneficial. JINSA's programs and meetings that I've participated in have been great opportunities to expand my understandings of a tumultuous area of our world, a balanced look. The professional camaraderie, growth between JINSA members and other senior advisors are some of the strongest benefits and the things I cherish most. General Stroop. Charlie May, another really old and dear friend. Charlie says that the highlights of his 20-plus years association with JINSA have been trips to Israel, Turkey, Cyprus, and other places. Many outstanding briefings and dinners, especially the Grateful Nation Awards. A true highlight has been his association with so many great Americans who truly care about and are involved in the process of U.S. national security. Charlie's final words were, JINSA members love the USA. Charlie, Bobby, where are you guys? Tom Griffin. Tom asked me to say that any success I've had was totally due to some great soldiers of all ranks who made me better, and a wonderful wife without whose support nothing would have happened. Tom's been a fixture with JINSA forever, and some soldiers may have made him better, but he's made us better. Tom? Jane? Hard to say. Where are you? Bill Merlin. Bill asked me to simply say he's a seagoing officer with designation as a Coast Guard cutterman in the Pacific, in the Atlantic, in the Gulf, and in the Caribbean. He served as the controller of the Coast Guard, their CFO, the Chief Office of Command, Control, and Communications for the Coast Guard. Now, I know Bill a long time, and I know what he's done. I can't read it all here, but his responsibilities for our coastlines and our inland waterways basically are staggering in their size and their complexity. He's always been there for us with his advice, with his counsel. Almost all of the Coast Guard's people whom we've taken to Israel over the years have been because Bill has suggested them to us. So Bill is here. Bill? It's tough with your spotlight. Where are you? Admiral? Jarvis Lynch. Jarv isn't here with us. That doesn't mean he's gone. He just hasn't wasn't able to make it tonight. I don't think Marines ever disappear. Jarv asked me to say simply, the honor of being associated with the JINSA and the flag and general officers who represented JINSA as individuals within the U.S. and as groups in Israel, was not only a magnificent experience, it was the greatest of privileges. Jarvis, long on action, short on words. That's Jarv Lynch. Sid Shacknow. These are Sid's words. I am a Jew and a Holocaust survivor, the only survivor to attain the rank of general in the history of the armed forces. I was assigned as the commanding general Berlin and the Berlin Brigade, defending the German people, the same people who imprisoned me for 3 years in a concentration camp, the same people who killed 38,000 prisoners and left only 2,000 survivors, of which I was one. In Berlin, I was prepared to fight the Russians who liberated me and defend the Germans who imprisoned me. The irony is hard to miss. Sid Shacknow, Arlene, please stand up. Bob Patterson. Bob sent me a few extra words. I deeply regret circumstances that prevent me from being with you today. I've been associated with the JINSA for 24 years, a period of learning, friendship, and establishing a strong bridge between this superb organization and our military services. JINSA has allowed me to mature my strong appreciation for two countries whose mutual friendship is so essential. My affinity for Israel is long and began in my active Air Force years. I played a small role in our support during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, but in later years, these roles became more often and more positive. I was honored to work with the best IDF Special Operations units. My heartfelt thanks to he said this. He asked me to say this. If I had a little more humility, I wouldn't, but he said, my heartfelt thanks goes to David Steinmann. For my 2 decades, David has been a truly masterful and often mysterious job of herding a variety of cats called the JINSA Board of Advisors. So, I don't know who the Steinmann guy is, but he must be terrific. There's one, now, these aren't his words, but I want to add one thing because it's important. You probably all remember that there was a time back in the 1980s when Israel mounted an airlift and flew Ethiopian Jews who had gotten out of Ethiopia into the Sudan. Israel picked them up and flew them to Israel. It turned out in 1984-85, it was discovered that they hadn't taken out all of the Ethiopian Jews. By then, there was a problem with the Sudanese government, and they needed foreign aid in order to facilitate the second airlift. And we arranged with them for something appropriate, what we would call chicken feed today. I think it was 15 million bucks with some more on the come. And we arranged to fly Hercules transports out of Ramstein Air Force Base into the Sudan to pick up the remaining Ethiopian Jews. The Sudan insisted that one of the conditions was that they not be flown directly to Israel. They had to make a stop somewhere in between because they didn't want to be seen as having facilitated a trip to Israel. The guy who flew the lead plane out of Ramstein Air Force Base was Bob Patterson. That was called Operation Sheba. General Bill Moore. Bill said, I'd like most to be identified with the Berlin Brigade, of which I was the commanding general from 1978 to 1980. I began my service during the Korean War as an infantry rifle platoon leader and later as a company commander in 7th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Division. I returned to Korea twice more in 74, 76 as the commander of the 3rd Brigade of the 2nd Infantry Division, the only U.S. troops on the DMZ. Then in 81 to 83, I served as the C3, J3, G3, the most demanding operations job in the military, and I followed that with my final assignment as Director of Operations, Readiness and Mobilization on the Army staff. I helped to rebuild the Army that we took into Desert Storm, and was also the Army staff lead for revitalizing our Special Operations Forces. I never wore a Green Beret, but I had a significant influence over the development of the Special Operations Forces we have now. And then he asked me to add, I still play with cars, Jags and Corvettes. Now, this is Steinmann, not Moore. A while ago, the Marines, not too long ago, the Marines adopted the Glock 9 as their primary sidearm. And when that news came out, I circulated it to a bunch of the guys on our board of advisors. I got back a lot of responses. One former commandant of the Marine Corps said he still preferred his Sig Sauer. But the most responses I got that didn't like the Glock 9 referred to the M1911. And I got back a note from Bill Moore that said that I'm an M1911 guy. It saved my life in Korea more than once. Bill, are you there? Where are you? Like this. Larry Taylor. Larry wants us to know that if this honor gives him a better chance of being recalled again from retirement to active duty, to please tell the Commandant that General Taylor is standing at parade rest next to the telephone. He also asked me to say that he's the grandson of Russian Jewish immigrants to America, and he regards his highest honor holding the title of United States Marine. I will add that he not too long ago sent me a picture of an attack helicopter with the words that said, "We made it pretty because it's the last thing our enemies will ever see." Ladies and gentlemen, those are the 14 advisory board members who have been with us since the Jurassic picture. Will you guys who are still here stand up again, please? Thank you all. We appreciate them. I know you do now also.